Hello, everyone, and welcome to another transfer talk show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. A lot of breaking news surrounding transfers circulating today, especially involving Liverpool. So, what we'll do today, we will go through some of the rumours. I'll give you my take, and feel free to get involved in the chat if you have any opinions on the rumours that I've mentioned today. So, let's start with the first one, and it's actually official news, which is great to see. As you can tell, it's Frimpong Friday today. The news is official. Jeremie Frimpong is now a Liverpool player. He was presented to the world earlier on today. I've seen a few of the social media clips from the Liverpool channel, and one that I really liked the look of was the fact that he went over to his family and he told his dad, "Look, I'm a Liverpool player now," because his dad's a Liverpool fan. I think his brother, I think his name's Aaron, he's also a Liverpool fan. So yeah, it was definitely a nice touch there where he's with his family, and I think they are over the moon for him as well. And he looked so happy as well, which is always nice to see when a player joins the club. He's not just joined the club because Liverpool are a big club. He's joined because he's actually got some sort of passion for the team, and there's a general excitement and joy about the move. So very, very nice in terms of what we saw earlier on in the social media accounts today. And I also love the fact that um, he was presented to the world as Trent also announced his move to Real Madrid. So Liverpool wasted no time to present, the replacement on the same day. A little bit petty, but hey, look, I'm all for it, to be honest with you. But my thoughts on this transfer, I've voiced my opinion on Frimpong quite a few times in the last few weeks. I'm very pleased with the move. I think he's a fantastic addition to the squad. Some fans will also, have some reservations in regards to his position in the team, where he's not an orthodox right back to some people. But the thing is, we don't play with an orthodox right back, so that's not going to change. Even with Trent Alexander-Arnold, he never played as an orthodox right back. When he first broke into the team, he was more of an attacking fullback and provided the width on that right hand side. That's what Frimpong is going to bring to the table, in my opinion. He's the one that's going to control that flank and make it his own, in my opinion. So for me, even playing in a back four, he's not going to be defensive minded. He's going to be forward thinking, and then you'll have the likes of Gravenberg and suppose like whoever's in the midfield on that side to cover his runs when required. So for me, he's a fantastic option. He also gives you flexibility whenever the coach decides to change the formation, even if it's during a game or maybe against different teams where he feels like maybe we need to play a back three or um, play a different sort of style. He's able to do that. He can play right back, can play right wing back, can play right mid, and even can play as a right winger. In the front three. So he gives you that versatility. So if we need someone in a different position on that right hand side, he's the one that can that we can go to. Of course, with Salah going to AFCON in January, we do have attackers in the team, but if we need a different outlook where we need a bit more pace on that right hand side, he can naturally play that right wing role as well. So for me, he gives us plenty of options. I feel like it's such a fantastic signing for 29.5 million. Yeah, that's peanuts in this day and age. And he ticks so many boxes in terms of him being homegrown. He's a Dutch international, but he's born and raised in the UK, so he speaks normal English like all of us. So no issues in terms of settling to the new environment. He wasn't. He lived not too far from Liverpool as well, so you know no surprises in terms of him settling in. Of course, he knows a lot of the Dutch players as well, the likes of Van Dijk, Gakpo, and Ryan Gravenberch. So, familiar faces there, and I'm sure he'll get along with the squad as well. He seems like a very upbeat person, very positive. Um, seems like he's got a good sense of humor, good vibe about him. So that's always a positive when someone joins a new squad. They present their personality, and I think, it would be nice to see him gel with the rest of the team. So I'm excited about this signing, and of course he's homegrown, so that's another tick box there as well. So for me, it's a very, very positive sign. Some fans may say, there were other right back options. I don't think there were a lot, to be fair. I've done episodes where I've tried to highlight certain players, but you've got to look at the whole package in general. whatever target we were looking at, I don't think none of them would have cost around that figure. So from a financial point, we've done well there. Homegrown, a lot of them weren't homegrown, so that's another thing there as well. And someone that's so versatile that can play in different positions. Um, I don't think that was the case for many of those players. They were either traditional right backs or could play right wing back. He can play right wing and he can score goals as well. He's shown that in the last couple of years for Leverkusen. So for me, very, very positive signing. And I'm very excited to see him playing in the Liverpool shirt. So drop a comment, let me know what you guys think. Are you happy with the Frimpong signing? If you maybe we should have targeted someone else, feel free to drop a comment and let me know. And speaking of Bayer Leverkusen, well, actually before that, this is probably the last time I'm going to present this player, and that is Trent Alexander-Arnold. After that, we'll probably not have to speak about him again. The reason I present is because today it was announced that Liverpool and Real Madrid have agreed on a fee for Trent Alexander-Arnold to join Real Madrid earlier than planned, because of course his contract expires on the 30th of June, so 1 month away from today. But due to Real Madrid participating in the Club World Cup, they wanted him earlier than usual. So I remember there was speculation about a few weeks ago in the media suggesting that Real Madrid offered £1 million for that compensation. So I did a transfer talk show, and I pretty much said that's a ridiculous amount. We should be, going for 10 million at least. Like that's the kind of figure we should be going for, because if they win that competition, they earn 100 million. So 10 million should not be a big deal for them if they really wanted to sign Trent Alexander-Arnold. And look, behold, that's exactly what's happened. We will be getting 10 million out of the player, which is better than nothing. Of course, I know a lot of fans had issues with Trent leaving because they said that he didn't really leave the club with any money. So we've got 10 million. I'm not saying that is enough, but I did say this a few weeks ago. When it comes to players leaving clubs, they really don't think about, if I leave, how much are in the club going to get for me. I don't think that's in their forefront in terms of their thinking, because you know to say it bluntly, they are selfish in that point of view. They only care about themselves and their careers, and that is fair play. They don't have to think about the bigger picture in that regard. So look, it's better than nothing. We've got 10 million of it that can be used towards transfers. I think the remaining salary and of course bonuses have been covered within that as well. So it's a win-win situation for Liverpool. Trent wasted no time to remove any affiliation with the club and quickly placed his new team on his bio. So good luck to him. And I really hope we do face him in the future, especially in the Champions League, this coming season, not just in the future. I'd like it to be this new season, because you know I've got really high hopes into how Liverpool are going to perform next season, and I want him to be on the receiving end. But that's just my thoughts on Trent Alexander-Arnold. But yes, this is the big news that we should be talking about, and that's Florian Wirtz. Now, according to some sources, Liverpool have placed a bid of 105 million pounds in euros. I believe that's around, I think it's around 120 odd million in euros. So that would include, I think, add-ons as well. So 10 million add-ons. So in total, I think the deal would be 130 million euros to sign Florian Wirtz. For me, it was always going to be a big fee. Some fans were expecting the fee to be below 100 million. I don't think that was going to be the case. I always thought it was going to be above that 100 million mark, and then add-ons will definitely play a part in that sort of total package there. So for me, in terms of thoughts on the fee, it's expected. If you're going to sign one of the best number 10s in world football, you're going to have to pay a premium price. And I think Liverpool, are willing to do that, which is positive. We've, said out loud numerous occasions, we want the club to show ambition, and they've done that finally this time around. So um, I'm not too, mad about the fee, because I know some fans have been a bit weird about foreign words. And if you agree or disagree, please correct me in the comments. But I've seen like a few people online suggesting that they're not overly pleased about signing Verts, because they feel like there's too much money on one player. It should be spread around on other positions. But look, if we're signing a player for that kind of money, is because we do have the finances to cover areas. I don't think this is going to be the last signing. I believe we'll definitely sign at least two more players. Now, if I was to name the position, I think we'd sign another centre back and another striker. I'd like another midfielder, but at this stage, I'm not convinced or 100% sure that we will go in for another midfielder. I really hope we do, because then I feel like it, completes us all together. But it'll be very interesting to see what we do. But I think we definitely get a striker. I think that's next on the card. Then we should probably be looking at a centre back and a midfielder, in my opinion. So let's see what happens there. But I don't think we should be too worried about the finances. We complain about the owners not showing ambition, but when they do, oh, that's too much money. Why are we doing that? Just sit back and enjoy the ride, because you know rival teams are worried, not just in the Premier League, in Europe, because this is a player that's 22 years old. He's already showing an unbelievable level right now. Imagine what he's going to do under Arne Slot, under a new sort of team with great quality. He's only going to get better and better. So for me, it's very important that we actually support, what's going on, because this is what we've asked for years and years. We can't complain about it now. So I think it's a bit bizarre that fans are a bit skeptical about the move. So, you just can't please everyone. Some said that we should be going for Turkey instead of Verts. I like Turkey. You guys know I like Turkey, but for me, if I had the choice between the two and it can be only one player, I'd go for Verts. So I feel like Verts is more accomplished. I feel like he fits the way we play perfectly. Cherky, even though I think he's an unbelievable talent and possesses some great, amazing individual skills, but does he fit the way we play? I would still have question marks about that. So for me, Verts is a dream signing. So much so, I've never mentioned him on my transfer shows because I never thought he was a realistic target. So look, I'm very, very excited about the signing. Today was Frimpong Friday. I have a sneak feeling that maybe we'll be seeing Verts Wednesday. That's when it gets announced that he becomes a Liverpool player. So let's see what happens there. Just got a few comments here. I'll read them out. Abdul Rahim, he says, "Hi, how are you? Like, comment, share, subscribe. You'll never walk on. Big up yourself, Abdul. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. I'm good. I hope you're doing well as well." Uh, Liverpool 12 man says, "Shout out, send me the link if you want the cars, guest." I'm doing a quick one today, but I will be in touch with you soon, 12 man. I'm going to be doing a lot more transfer shows, so I'd definitely like to get you on and get some take on, rumors surrounding strikers. I'm sure that's going to be a big talking point. So yeah, just doing a quick one today, but we'll schedule one together properly in the near future. Thomas, big up. So Thomas, he says, "Welcome, Fring Pong." Um, yeah, hopefully he joins ping pong. Yeah, some people were expecting it to be like a double announcement. Uh, I think that would have been great, but maybe you just got to do things individually. It's not like how it used to be back in the day. I remember when we had signings under Gerard Julian, you had like five players around him, all present at one time. Those days are gone now. So with social media and all that sort of stuff, there has to be that specific attention on certain players. So yeah, it could happen next week. That's my prediction. Ping pong Friday, and next week will be Verts Wednesday. That's what I'm hoping for. So let's see what happens. Still Patrol says, big up yourself, 12 man. Uncle Roz TV says, yes, bro, big up Uncle Roz. I hope you're doing well. Guys, please subscribe to Uncle Roz's channel and also subscribe to Liverpool 12 man. Great content creators, great friends, of course. So yeah, please show your support by subscribing to the channel. Thomas says, watch out Premier League. Listen, watch out Premier League, but also watch out Champions League, because I feel like the way we're going to set up, any team in Europe is going to find us difficult. With certain teams in Europe, they always find a way to stop and attack minded team. I feel like we're going to be hard to break down. So for me, I'm excited in terms of what the future holds for Liverpool. Frimpong, first one officially in. Herkes is pretty much a done deal. It's just, I think structure of the deal in terms of upfront payments and add-on clauses, all that stuff, that needs to be ironed out. Quite similar to the Verts one. I think that's one. I know there was some rumors circling around Verts to suggest that the hold up was that they wanted another player. That might have been the case, but they had few areas that they needed to address. I think one they're addressing, which I'll speak about later on. And the other positions, I think they're probably trying to find the right profile. Have they even appointed a new manager? I know Cesc Fabregas was the one that was leading the charge there. Actually, they have Ten Hag, isn't it? So yeah, maybe he wanted to get a player from us. I think they were looking at a goalkeeper, a centre back, and possibly even Harvey Elliott. But I think, with these players that or these positions, we've got players there that we value them at a certain price, and don't think it met their valuation. So I would rather it be where, we complete the Florian Wirtz deal as its own. And if they do have interest in our other players that are available for transfer, then we can have a separate discussion. Kind of like when we, signed Szoboszlai and then um Carvalho went there out on loan as well. It wasn't the same deal. It was two separate deals that happened in the same window. So maybe that's something that can be done. But I'm excited. I'm very excited about this Verts move. Um, Thomas and Vigen quadruple. Yeah, look, I love the energy. I'm just waiting on the striker. I want to see who we sign as a main striker. If it's Alvarez, 100%. I'm going to say it shamelessly that we are going to win the quad. Um, I think the striker is just the one that, I feel like we need to get a top finisher, and that's the one where we can kind of present a right prediction. We've got Darwin Núñez who looks like he's set to leave. Very unclear about Jota in terms of his future. I feel like if there was an offer made for him, I think he could be sold as well. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see who we sign, because there's a lot of players that we've been linked with that I think are quite young and quite raw, but their price have been inflated due to interest from English clubs. And that's what's going to happen, unfortunately. So we have to be very smart in terms of how we maneuver uh, the next signing in terms of up top, because it can't be a very well-known name or a name that has been linked with so many clubs. It's going to be someone that probably comes out in the blue or is known, but maybe people weren't aware if he was available, or maybe they thought he hasn't performed, and maybe if he goes to another club, he revives his career. I don't know. So it's going to be interesting, nonetheless. But Liverpool are the only team that is really active right now. You'd think we missed out on the Premier League the way we're moving. Like, we're hungry, but we're hungry for success because we have won this season. So I'm loving the approach from the club right now. Thomas saying make a cheeky bid on Haaland. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Adam says we leak goals. We need centre back and CDM. I don't think we leak goals like that, because there was a point where we were very, very strong defensively. One of the highlights that I remember in the first part of the season, that we were keeping so many clean sheets, and that felt like a breath of fresh air, because under Jurgen Klopp, even though we enjoyed the heavy metal football, defensively we conceded a lot of goals. So for me, that was something that we addressed. But I think the second half of the season, I think, not making excuses, but I think fatigue played a part. A bit of rotation, so played a role in terms of not being as solid as we normally are. And I think the last 5 or 6 weeks, we can give the team the benefit of that. We were on cloud nine. We'd accomplished our goal of winning the Premier League, so we weren't fully invested into how we performed. So, but I do agree with you. I do think we need a centre back. The reason I think we need a centre is because we need a player, in my opinion, that could be viewed as Van Dijk's long-term successor. I think that would be a smart signing to make this summer. And also, forget that for a moment. We don't know the future of Konate. I really hope he does sign a contract. If he doesn't sign a contract, then this might be the window where we cash in, because he's got 1 year left. And I don't want it to be another Trent Alexander-Arnold situation where we lose him out on a free, because that's got Real Madrid written all over it, and I don't want that to happen again. So let's see what happens. That's a position. It will definitely be a position we address. Whether Konate stays or go, I think one might be going. I think Quansah might be the one that ends up going. So let's see. Let's see what the future holds. You know what? In the perfect world, I would just like to add another defender and then have 5 centre backs in our team, which is it is feasible. We've done that in the past, so why can't we do it again? So let's see. Let's see what happens. This is question mark on Quansah, Konate, and Gomez performance and injuries. Yep, Konate more so, not performance or injuries related for him. Konate is more so in terms of his contractual situation. That's the question mark there. Quansah, yes, it is more performance related because I do feel like there's a player there, but whenever he's played under Arne Slot, he's been prone to making errors. He's been prone to conceding penalties and conceding fouls that shouldn't be done. So I don't know if he's quite ready for this level of football, in my opinion. I, in an ideal world, I think a loan move would make perfect sense for him. But in this day and age, y- patience isn't always there in football. So if there is interest from other clubs, that's something that could be addressed. But I'll speak about Quansah during the show. I do have him labeled for one of the rumors I'm going to talk about today. I would say we shouldn't carry players in our squad. No, we shouldn't. That's why it's important to sign quality this season rather than quantity. And I think that is something we're going to do this season. On to the next rumor. Luis Diaz. Now, the current rumor that I'm hearing online is that Saudi Arabia team Al Nassr are interested in signing the Colombian winger, and apparently the club are willing to pay up to 85 million euros, which is roughly around 71, 72 million pounds. Um, Now, the big question is, should the club accept that offer, or should they even negotiate to ask more? Now, we probably could get more if I'm being honest, but that's something we'll leave that sort of tactic for Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes because when they're negotiating with the club, they will get a sense that they are if they are willing to increase or not. Because if that's an opening offer, then they definitely will be willing to increase the bid. If they've been having discussions for months and months and they've come up to this as the final price, then it's a different debate because we don't know what goes behind closed doors in terms of the boardroom discussions and all that sort of stuff. So, but on paper, I think 70 million is a reasonable fee. I would have accepted that regardless because I feel like Lucho, I think he turns 29 soon. So is that correct? Let me double check that actually. I don't want to get his age wrong. Luis Diaz. So Luis Diaz is currently 28 and he'll be 29 in January. So he's just turned 28 a few months ago. So 28 years of age. So approaching sort of his prime years, I guess. Um, Look, I wouldn't have an issue with Diaz staying at the club. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's very talented, to be fair. Can be a bit inconsistent, but I do feel like he's a hard worker. He really works for the team, and you need those type of players in your squad. And also this season, he's shown versatility where he stepped up to play the false nine position, which he hasn't done in the past, and he's produced a decent account of himself as well. So for me, he's a very talented player. But having said that, to look at his current situation, he's been wanting a new contract at the club. He hasn't been offered it. He's not going to be given any improved terms in terms of what he's currently earning. So therefore, this might be the time for him to move on because he's got 2 years remaining of his contract. This is the season where his value is quite high because of his success, in terms of on an individual level, but also for his current club, which is Liverpool, of course. So this will be the time to possibly cash in and he can move on somewhere and earn some good money. Of course, the Saudi links that they've been very strong since January. Barcelona, that link has been around for a good year or two now. If they had the finances, then I think that would be the move that that attracts Luis Diaz and especially his dad. He's been talking about the move whenever he gets called upon by the media. So that would definitely appeal to Luis Diaz and his family. But right now, it doesn't look like they have the finances to engineer that move. So it looks like Saudi could be the destination, and I'll accept 70 million. I think that's a fantastic return for this player. And I also feel like within the team, we've got Cody Gakpo. If he was to leave, then I could see us signing a sort of a young profile, like someone that comes to mind, the Malik Fofana, a player that I really like. I've watched him at Lyon a few times this year, especially in the Europa League. He's a very, very talented player. So maybe that's the profile we go for. or Florian Wirtz coming in. Maybe he occupies that left wing role. And I know people say that's not his natural position, but I think it's going to be similar to how we use Coutinho. Because for me, Wirtz give me Coutinho vibes. He'll play a lot of games from the left, but they'll also play a lot of games as the main number 10. So with Gakpo already in the squad, do we need to add more? Do we need to find a like for like replacement in that sort of mode, or with the finance involved? Not really. We could probably use that money elsewhere and possibly use it on a striker. That's what I would do, in my opinion. Or maybe sign like a Malik Fofana for like 20, 30 million, and you still have about 40 million, 50 million, depending on the final fee, to use on a striker as well. So let me know what you guys think in the chat. If you would like to sell Diaz, would you accept that 70 million offer? Or do you think we should, keep him for another year, maybe sell him on next summer, where his contract is, still valid and it's not, where we miss out on him on a free transfer. So maybe that's something we can look into. Abdul says sell Diaz, so yeah, he's probably on the same boat as me there. On to the next one, and I mentioned him earlier on, and he's been linked to a move away as well, and that's Cody Gakpo. So surprisingly, there's rumors circulating that Bayern Munich have earmarked Cody Gakpo as a potential signing this summer. The German club are willing to pay around 74 million pounds, which is 90 million euros for the Dutch winger. Now, firstly, I don't think that fee is correct. I don't see Bayern Munich spending that much money on Cody Gakpo, but then again, they were probably willing to spend that money on Florian Wirtz. So maybe they see Cody Gakpo as an alternative for Florian Wirtz, because I think the plan was for Musiala to play on the left and Wirtz to play in the middle, or vice versa. So if they brought Cody Gakpo, it allows Musiala to play as their main number 10. So that might be they thinking, Wirtz was a opportunistic signing. If they weren't able to get him, then maybe they actually sign an orthodox left winger. Because they have been linked with other names. They've been linked with Mutoma from Brighton, and they've also been linked with Rafael Leao from AC Milan. So in terms of this rumor, I don't see Liverpool accepting it. Even if it's 74 million, that's a lot of money. If it was 74 million, honestly, I think the club would consider it. Uh, Now, whether the player wants to go is another thing, because I feel like for him, it the move might not appeal to him right now, because he's in such a settled place right now where he's been here for about a couple of years now. He's had a huge impact in the team, and I feel like the journey hasn't ended. Liverpool have been on a high. They won the Premier League. They've won, you know, the Carabao Cup. They won the FA Cup with Cody Gakpo last season, as in the following season as well. So it would be a bit premature to leave a club where you're winning trophies, you're in a good place, you're managed by a Dutch coach, you've got Dutch players around you as well. It's a very great environment for him. So even if the bid came and the club accepted it, I don't think Cody Gakpo would be willing to leave it, in my opinion. So it's an interesting one. It's definitely come out of the blue, because it's not a player that I thought would be, regarded as a player available for transfer. But if I was to make a prediction, I don't think this move will happen. Uh, so yeah, let's hope that's the case, because I feel like if we saw Gakpo as well, then there's too much chopping and changing, and you do want to have your core squad ready for next season. Additions are great, but not to get rid of your some of your top performers. Because I think Cody Gakpo was one of our top performers last season, so you have to be a bit smart and not just accept bids because big money that is coming through the vine. We have to be smart. We have to be calculating in terms of what we do. So if that offer was to come, I personally wouldn't accept it, because I feel like we've got a player that is very, very reliable, and has produced a good for us. So it's important to keep players like that in the team. So let's see what happens with this one. Next rumor, now I mentioned his name earlier on, that is Jarell Quansah. Now, no surprise, because it's been circulating for quite a few months that there was a number of teams that are willing to sign Jarell Quansah this summer. Originally, the fee was £30 million. That's what the clubs were willing to pay. But Liverpool have sort of come out and said that that's not the right valuation of the player. They value the player at 50 million. Now, the question is that the right valuation? In my opinion, I'm actually going to say yes, because 30 million doesn't sound like a lot to me. I'm not just trying to be greedy, trying to get as much money so we can reinvest in the squad. Do you remember last season we sold Vandenberg for the same price? We sold Fabio Carvalho for the same price. Yes, Brentford bought them and they probably got mugged off. Let's be brutally honest. But we sold two fringe players that were nowhere near the first team for 30 million each. Jarell Quansah has pretty much been third or fourth choice centre back this season. So he might not have played as many games as he would have liked, but he has been actively involved, in the first team this season. Under Jurgen Klopp, he was very active as well. That's why we all gave him the nickname of VVQ, which was probably premature if you're looking back at it now. But he showed a lot of promise in that first season. This season, he's had a bit more of an up and down season. But like I said earlier on the show, I do feel like there's a player that I feel like he's got a lot of potential. So if we were to part ways with him, I think 50 million for me is the acceptable fee. I wouldn't be disappointed in terms of, what, we should have got more money for him. I think 50 million is about the right valuation. I don't think it's too much for a club to pay, because this is a player where, if he hits the ground running and he fulfills his potential, he has a strong chance for playing for England, because he's been selected by them a couple of times recently. So he could be a potential England centre back. That's the kind of level he has, in my opinion. So, you know, 50 million sounds crazy. I know it does, but in this day and age, it's actually not that crazy. The going rate for a good centre back is around that 40, 50 million mark. So for me, I think it'd be a smart, you know, decision. If a club is willing to spend 50 million, then I think that would be the right time, to sell the player and part ways with Quansah. Uh, if not, if teams are willing to pay around 40 million, I think 40 million is okay. I definitely add, a buyback clause or some sort, because if he does fulfill his potential in the near future, then we need to try and get him back on board, isn't it? Um, so yeah, I do think I've been quite 50-50 whenever I've been presenting the question if we should keep Sponsor or should we sell him. And I think the reason why I've been so 50-50 about it is because of the fee. I feel like 30 million didn't really justify his valuation, but 30 million didn't justify it. But 50 million does justify his valuation. So if you were to get 50 million on the table, then I'd accept it, if I'm being honest with you. So I just got a comment here from Adam Hunt. Big up, Adam. He says, keep grinding, bro. Big up, Adam. Thank you for your positive comment. I appreciate you sending that over. Let's move on to the next rumor. Hugo Ekitike. Now, I did a show about him yesterday, so if you haven't seen it, please make sure to catch up on the channel. I think I did like an hour show on him. So yeah, pretty much did a whole profile in terms of what he brings to the table, and if he's the right fit for us or not. The current rumor is that he is in talks with the club. Um, Now, the stumbling point I think for this deal is the fact that Frankfurt are demanding 100 million euros for the signature of Hugo Ekitike. In pounds, I think that's around 84 million pounds. For me, that's too much. Let me not be around the bush. That is too much money for Ekitike. Considering the fact that one of our prime target is Julian Alvarez, he was sold for 64 million plus add-ons that equal to around 85 million. That's the caliber of striker that I would pay 84 million pounds. Hugo Ekitike, for me, has great potential. He really does. I do feel like in like a year or two, he could be regarded as a top striker in world football, but he's still very raw. When I've seen him play, in terms of finishing, he's not a natural goal scorer. He's not a poacher or anything like that. He's a very smart player in terms of, he can drop deep, he can hold the ball very well, he can link up play from midfield to attack very well, he can attack the channels. So he's an all-round striker. He does have different traits and ability, but he's not the complete striker. When I say complete, he's 8, 9, 10 out of 10 in every area. He's not quite there yet, in my opinion. So, for us to spend that kind of money on a striker, you have to be someone that's ready-made or someone that's going to have an instant impact. And when I say instant impact, I'm thinking the likes of Isak and Julian Alvarez. That's the kind of caliber of striker that I expect Liverpool to sign. So for me, look, if he does sign, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's a terrible signing. I do rate the player. I do like him. It's a gamble. That's how I would view it. I would view it as a gamble more than anything else. And we took a punt on Darwin Núñez, and that never worked out. So when we do that again, for me, it's a bit of a risk. I feel like there's a couple names, like Isak Alvarez. Isak for me just seems a bit unrealistic. Alvarez, maybe a slim glimmer of hope. I don't know. Based on what I'm hearing in terms of that Atletico would be willing to sell him and all that sort of stuff. Gyökeres from Sporting, that's the kind of striker that I expect us to be targeting because he's a bit more experienced. He's 27 years of age, but he's at that stage where because he's been scoring a lot of goals over the years, he's probably ready to make that transition to a club like Liverpool. An Osimhen, I'd like an Osimhen, but some fans have questioned his attitude, saying he's a bit, he's got a bit of an ego and all that sort of stuff. I don't know, to be honest with you. I've never really heard that about him. I know he's had issues with the Napoli president, but that's because I know there was one incident about the video that was, quite racist in the way they presented the content, and they never really, acknowledged it or took any accountability on that. So that's the reason why he's had issues with the club internally, and I'm sure there's other things as well. But those are the two strikers that I would look at: Osimhen and Gyökeres from Sporting. But other than that, there aren't real established strikers out there, in my opinion. So that's why, I can't really say we're gonna win the quad. Once we sign that striker, that's gonna feed that confidence in me to be like, you know what? Yeah, we're definitely gonna go for it. So let's see. If it is Ekitike, I'd be excited. Don't get me wrong, but it's still a gamble. I'll still have a slight reservation in my head because I'm like, what if it doesn't work out? And also, not to sound too crazy, but if we sign Ekitike, I want us to sign another striker ahead of him, and maybe someone like. Not a popular choice, guys. So, feel free to let me know how you feel. Like a Jonathan David, he's a free transfer, but he's an experienced, striker. He's a bit of a box in the box, scores tap ins. I don't even mind that sort of striker. I don't feel like we can rely on Hugo Ekitike. Jota would be a fantastic player as your backup, but the thing with Jota is always unavailable. So that's not going to be a key trait for me to have in your striker. Your backup striker should more or less be available at most times. So for me, that's a bit of a concern, and I don't really want to play players out of position. Diaz, looks like he's out of the door, so we don't have him as a third choice makeshift striker. Florian Wirtz can play that false nine role, but I don't really want him to play that role. I want him to play in his natural position or coming from the left. That's the two roles that I want to see him play. So let's see. I'm sure we'll hear more in the coming days and weeks. I don't feel like we'll have a striker sorted out straight away unless it's a different target. If it's Ekitike, then we're gonna have to do a bit of negotiation because the president wants 100 million euros, which is outrageous. Comment in from Abdul. Abdul says Hugo for 84 million, which is 100 million euros. I think it's supposed to say too much for development potential and project players. We need a number 9 complete striker with goals and hits the ground running now. Yeah, I totally agree with that. We got Adam says Ekitike too much of a risk for so much money. Last year we waited it out where there wasn't a lot, but look at what is happening now because we waited out last year. That's the thing. I think last year we were trying to get Alvarez, but because he was with Man City, they wanted Diaz as part of the deal, and we weren't willing to do business. So yeah, it's a bit of a crazy. Even Isak as well. I think last year might have been the time to game. Actually, I don't know if Newcastle would have been willing to sell him, but hindsight's a thing. But I don't know. I feel like Alvarez, something tells me that there's something there. I don't know why. Maybe it's just hope more than anything else. But I feel like we could definitely pressure Atletico, trying to get that play over the line because, they signed him for 64 million plus add-ons, but the add-ons haven't been activated because, you have to win the league and all that sort of stuff. And because they haven't done that, if we were to, offer like £100 million, that kind of, helps them balance the book, but also gives them a bit of money to invest in another striker. So they're also linked to Lunes. They want that striker as well. So maybe we can do some sort of swap deal. And with finance involved, I don't know, but that's a striker I would really like us to get. Julian Alvarez, I feel like he ticks all of the boxes in any shape or form. Doesn't how we play and what he brings to the table. I saw his free kick a couple of weeks ago. He can do that as well. So for me, very very complete striker. Thierry Henry went on a podcast over and said that that's the striker that he really enjoys watching. So that's coming from one of the best strikers in recent years. So you got to take word for that. So let's move on to the next transfer. And that is Kelleher. So the current rumor with Kelleher looks like that he could be heading towards the G-Tech Community Stadium, as Brentford have shown very strong interest in signing the goalkeeper. Now, I definitely believe that there is some truth to this rumor because their current number one, who is Mark Flecken, he's actually on the verge of joining Bayer Leverkusen. So that pretty much opens a vacant space for a number one goalkeeper at Brentford. And Brentford have been a name that has been linked with Keller for a number of months, possibly even about a year now. I think they were linked to him last summer as well, but we weren't willing to part ways with the keeper. So I believe that Brentford could be one of the strong candidates to sign Kelleher. But the big question is that the right move for the keeper? And is it the right club for him? Should he hold off for a move that from a club that might offer him European football or something of that nature because he's been linked with Aston Villa, he's been linked with Chelsea in the past as well. Should he hold out for a move from a big club, respectively speaking? Personally, I don't think he should hold out for a move because I don't think there's a guarantee. I think Aston Villa could be a strong candidate to sign him as well because it looks like Emilio Martinez is set to leave the club. So a club that's in the Europa League, I think that would definitely fit the bill. And I think they'd sign a fantastic keeper in Keller to replace Martinez there. But with Brentford, you've got a team there where I think he will be number one. No doubts about it. And I feel like, he's still, in goalkeeper terms, he's still quite young. He doesn't need to go over to a big club because the concern would be that if he went to join over a Chelsea, for example, and he has a few bad games, and then they sign another goalkeeper to replace him in January. That's no, it doesn't sound wild when it comes to Chelsea because that is what they normally do. So, you don't want to move over to a club that doesn't provide that stability for you. He's 26 years old, he'll be 27 in November. I feel like if he was to join Brentford, it's a strong team in my opinion. They were very close to qualifying for Europe. They are on the up. So if they're able to add quality to the team, it could be a team that challenges for Europe again next season. So for me, that would be a very solid club for him to join. He would have a great coach in Thomas Frank. And look, if he produces an amazing season and a team like a Chelsea wants to sign him in terms of the next summer, then that move will always be on the cards for him, and it will benefit him, and it also benefit the club as well, which would be Brentford if we're talking, in terms of this scenario. So I think Brentford would be a good move for him. My only stumbling point from a Liverpool point of view is the transfer fee because Brentford value him at £20 million, which for me is far too low. We should be getting at least 30 million from him. If it's Chelsea or Aston Villa, I slap on another 10 million and say 40 million because they're teams that are, Chelsea in the Champions League, Villa are in the Europa League. So they're teams that are, challenging for those type of honors. So for me, you got to add a bit more tax to that price. 20 is far too low. I wouldn't accept 20 at all. So let's see. I think we're going to hear some news in the coming weeks. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Killer, but I think it is certain that he will be leaving this summer. Now, a name that's been, doing the rounds in the last 24 hours, and that is Gonçalo Ramos. Now, this rumor has certainly split the fan base. So I'd love to hear what everyone thinks about the striker, because Liverpool have been linked with a move for Ramos, and the quoted fee is around 55 million. Now, in terms of his stats, he's played 40 times for PSG in all competitions, 18 goals, 6 assists. In the league, he's made 22 appearances, 10 goals, and 3 assists. So not too shabby for a striker there. The big question is he the right profile or the right quality for Liverpool? Look, as a player, I think he's a good striker. I remember him playing for Benfica and was very clinical. And even for Portugal when they won the Nations League, I think yeah, I think that's what they called it. He played a part in that as well. So he's definitely a, a proper number 9. He's a poacher type of striker, good in one-on-one finishes, good at scoring from tight angles. I don't know if he's like the one for us because as silly as it sounds, when you be linked with Isak, Alvarez, I want that sort of caliber of a striker. Ramos for me isn't quite to that level. But having said that, he's quite young. I didn't realize he's 23 years of age. So, he's been quite accomplished in the last few years. At Benfica, he was banging the goals. I think when Darwin Núñez left, he was the guy that took over the mantle and was the main man at Benfica. And that season actually led to him moving over to PSG because he was so prolific in front of goals. So I do think he's a good striker. He wouldn't move me to describe it in that way, if I'm being honest with you. So, but look, if we're not able to get Isak or Alvarez, Osimhen, Gyökeres, then maybe Ramos would come into that frame. I know a lot of fans will disagree with that. He's more accomplished than an Ekitike, in my opinion, than a Sesko. So for me, those are the type of players that, you know, I would regard as backup. But I don't know. I'm a bit 50-50 on Ramos. If he's the only striker that we sign, I'd find it slightly underwhelming, if I'm being brutally honest. But of course, I'd give him a chance. He's a Liverpool player. He'll get my full support. But I would find it a bit underwhelming. But feel free to let me know what you guys think of Ramos, because I know he's split the fan base in the last 24 hours. Adam says, I feel we missed a trick letting Chelsea get the lap. Is that official, Adam? Bloody hell. Let me quickly have a look at that. Yeah, it looks like it is. All right, you're right. Let me share the screen with you guys so you can see what I'm reading as well. Okay, so Adam's brought me some breaking news today. That's cool. Um, that's interesting, because I do like Delap. He's kind of warmed. I've been warmed up to him a bit more, of course, not in that way. Um, as the season's gone on. So yeah, so this is the current rumor. Um, Chelsea have exchanged documents with Ipswich tonight, confirming a 30 million move for Liam Delap, medical booked on Monday. So yeah, that looks like it's pretty much a done deal. And Adam said that release clause is still worth a punt at that price. It is, to be fair. Um, I think for Liverpool, he would have been great as a Jota replacement rather than a Nunes replacement. Because I think on paper, I think whoever replaces Nunes is going to be the main number 9. And if Jota was to leave, he's going to be regarded as the backup or the understudy, depending on what type of player he is. So, yeah, I think Delap has a lot of potential. He's very raw, but I feel like as the season went on, he showed that he's got something about him. He's so quick on the ball, got great speed, and he's both footed as well. Can finish with his left, can finish with his right. So Chelsea, that's a good signing for Chelsea. I'm not gonna lie. I really hope we sign a top striker now because if it is Gonçalo Ramos, the one I just mentioned, good striker, but not elite in my opinion. I think that's the type of striker that I want us to target. So let's see. Let me know what you guys think in the chat, but doesn't move me, unfortunately. Now, Ederson, a name that has resurfaced again, and the current rumor is that Liverpool are on the verge of entering talks to sign the Brazilian midfielder from Atalanta. The fee is quoted for £50 million. Now, my thoughts and on the rumor and on the player as well. He's a player that I really like. If you watched my channel before, rated him for about a year now. Really, really like the player. He's not a number six, so he's not going to be that type of player. But he's going to be what Gravenberch brings to the table, where he can play as a six because he's got such great defensive ability, but his strengths are more as a box-to-box midfielder. He chips in with the goals here and there, so I think he'd be a great foil for a McAllister or Gravenberch. He provides that kind of cover and competition with those two players, but he brings energy. He's physical, despite not being the tallest or biggest of players. He's tenacious on the ball. I feel like he's a complete midfielder. He's got a lot about him. So I'd be very pleased with this signing. 50 million is not too crazy, in my opinion. So I'd be very pleased with this signing. And I've mentioned him in one of my transfer shows as well when I was analyzing the midfield department. And he was one of the names that I thought could really add quality and add skill to our midfield. So for me, I'd be over the moon if this was the midfield signing. I think he would be a good signing for us. Whether it happens or not remains to be seen. If there is any truth to us, entering talks or being in dialogue with Atalanta, Richard Hughes should be playing a part because he's got contacts at Atalanta. He was a former youth player there as well. He's got a lot of contacts in Italy, so that should help him get this deal concluded. And if it does get concluded, I'll be the first to put my hand up and give him his plaudits because I've not been impressed with Richard Hughes since he's been appointed. I know we're getting the likes of Frimpong, Kelleher, Wirtz over the line. Once they're over the line, I'll give credit when it's due. But my gut is telling me that that's more Michael Edwards than Richard Hughes, if I'm being honest. But we'll talk about it when those deals are official. But in terms of Ederson, I'll be very pleased if he was the signing. So let's see what happens with that. And that's the final rumor for today, and that is the end of the show. So thank you so much for tuning, everyone. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you to Abdul. Thank you to Liverpool 12th Man. Thank you to Thomas. Thank you to um, Uncle Rods. Thank you to Adam for your comments. Appreciate your engagement as always, guys. In terms of upcoming shows, of course, there's no fixtures, so no weekend content. But if we get any breaking news in regards to transfers or anything that needs to be spoken about, do expect some impromptu shows in the coming days. So the best thing to do is hit that notification bell, so you know what time I have a show scheduled, because with the season concluded now, it's going to be more transfer related and it's going to be more spontaneous shows and all that sort of stuff. So definitely be on the lookout for that. We'll definitely do another transfer talk show that will probably take place this time next week. And yeah, we'll probably do some more shows during the week as well. I might even do a show where I break down the whole squad, then I'll play the role of Richard Hughes. I'll be the sporting director and I'll present, who I would sell, and with the money generated, who I would bring in as well. So that's a show that I've got lined up. So look out for that. So that should be coming maybe next week or so. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.